Good morning, everybody. I'm Zach Blanchard, and this is Political Brew. Joining me this morning, Democratic political strategist Betsy Sweet and Republican political strategist Garrett Mason. Good morning to you both.
Good morning. Good morning.
We'll get to the presidential debate in the next hour, but first, Governor Janet Mills is celebrating a big investment in Maine's community college system. A $75 million grant from the Harold Alfond Foundation will go towards more job training. More than 26,000 students have already gone through these programs in the last 2 years. Here's some of what the governor had to say.
By targeting free training in healthcare workers, clean energy workers, tradespeople, manufacturers, hospitality workers, educators, and computer technicians, the center addresses one of our top challenges. That is creating new pathways to middle skill positions at the heart of Maine's economy.
Betsy Mills has focused a lot on community college. Of course, the free tuition part of this that's taxpayer funded. Is this all working?
Yes. I mean, we are seeing, first of all, this is an awesome investment in our kids and in our future. And it's a really good piece of news in times when we don't have that much good news to celebrate. So this is awesome. And I think, yes, it is. I mean, anyone who's tried to call an electrician or a plumber or anything else knows that that's a huge gap in our economy and where we are. And it's a place where people can have good jobs, make good money. This kind of training and this kind of free access to that training is huge for our middle class in Maine and for our kids who really want, not every kid wants to go to college. And this is an incredible pathway. So this is an awesome piece of good news.
Garrett.
Oh, I totally agree. This is a place where I really agree with the governor and what she's been doing with the community college system. You know, for me on the expense side, it's a huge savings for, you know, kids who want to go to school, to be able to get a 2-year degree that is essentially free. I mean, that's amazing. And this is only going to add to that. You know, full disclosure, I do have construction clients. And so for us, this is wonderful. You know, those middle trades that the governor's talking about, electricians, plumbers, you know, skilled labor with, you know, construction just in general is really hard to find. And so I think this is a great addition to the all of the above approach, making sure that we have the trades that we need to build Maine's future.
Yeah, and healthcare workers and hospitality as well.
Right, across the board we do.
Yeah, awesome.
Absolutely. All right, starting out with some agreement. In some national news, Wall Street Journal reporter and former Bowdoin College graduate Evan Gershkovich's trial started this week in Russia. He's facing espionage charges for spying, something he, the American government, and the Wall Street Journal continue to deny. Garrett, has the Biden administration done enough in this case?
I mean, I think they need to do more. You know, I think in these types of trials in Russia, they're very close to the public. Mr. Gershkovich was lucky to have a couple of U.S. Embassy officers in the room with him for a short period of time. But listen, this is a 99% probability that he's going to be convicted and likely will have to serve a 20-year prison sentence. So they have not done enough. They need to do more. They have had success, I'll give credit where credit is due, in bringing some people home. So I think they need to do more. But I mean, I think this is just, I hate to say it, but foreign policy gone amok again. And I think Putin is seeing this as an opportunity to get something. There's been talk of prisoner swaps. So it's just a really unfortunate situation. And obviously someone with ties to Maine, our heart breaks for them. Yeah.
Betsy, what does this mean, though, for American-Russian relations?
I think it adds an additional strain, and I think this is a political ploy. We saw it with Brittany Griner. You know, we've seen them using high-profile cases, high-profile people as political pawns in our diplomacy, and I think it's heartbreaking for Evan, certainly, and his family, and for all of us. But I think it's also not a good way for American diplomacy to continue, which is you take one of our, like a chess game, we'll take one of yours and then we'll try and negotiate it out. I hope that he will be released. I agree he's going to be convicted, but then the question is how quickly can they get him released?
All right. And finally, Congresswoman Shelley Pingree is continuing to focus on climate change, joining an effort to slow down what's called fast fashion this week. Now, fast fashion refers to mass-produced, often poorly made clothing that results in increased carbon emissions and waste. Pingree announced the first ever congressional Slow Fashion Caucus to fight the effects of fast fashion.
As lawmakers, we can create incentives for the apparel industry and consumers to reduce natural resource consumption and engage in reusing, repairing, rewearing, and recycling textiles. This could include policies that make it easier for consumers to rewear clothing, such as buying secondhand or renting rather than purchasing an outfit you only need to use once or twice.
Now, Betsy, is this a worthwhile fight?
This is actually incredible. There is more carbon footprint for fashion than there is for all international flights combined. So it's not only the manufacturing of this clothing, but it's actually what the clothing is made of. So it's made up, like 80%, I think she said, is made out of fossil fuels, basically. So all the polyester, all that, non-natural fabrics. Returning to natural fabrics, cotton, hemp, all of those things that come back here is not only good for the carbon footprint, but it's really good for our American workers. And so I think this is a win-win-win. I think Shelley has stuck to her guns. She is looking for every avenue we can find to address climate change. This is a big one and one that's not talked about much. So I think this is awesome.
Garrett?
I mean, I think, listen, I have my grandfather's navy pea coat, and it's a beautiful coat. And I use a brush on it every chance I get. And when the winter comes, it's a really easy coat to repair. But I do think this is a little tone deaf. Not everybody can afford a navy pea coat in my example, or a nice wool coat when you go to work. Not everybody can afford that. Fast fashion does provide some opportunity for people to be able to afford clothes that they might not be able to afford. And I think one of the things that I think we can agree on, I'm trying to find things to agree on today, right? Is there's some really great programs outside of Goodwill. Like there's a Women Work program where people donate clothes for women who are trying to get jobs, like coming out of homelessness and whatnot. So I mean, I think there's some opportunities. I think it's slightly tone deaf to think that we're going to get rid of a cheap T-shirt, but
But I think her effort at making it easier for people to reuse clothing, to resell clothing, to all of that. There's strict regulations around that.
What does that actually look like?
So that means that there's more stuff donated to a Goodwill or Salvation Army. Certainly among young people, thrifting, my kids, that's their favorite thing is to go thrifting. But I think the idea of renting clothes, just incentivizing some of that stuff, which is hard now, making sure, I think it's actually the opposite of tone deaf. Not everyone can afford a pea coat, but you can afford to, if you give yours away, I can go get it and make it that easier. So I think it's very creative, and I think it's looking at something, if you look at the statistics of what the carbon footprint is for fashion, not to mention the working conditions of people in Cambodia and Thailand, people are making our clothes, this is a real win, and I think it's smart, and I think it's great to bring attention to it.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. The Weekend Morning Report is back right after this. Good morning, everybody. I'm Zach Blanchard, and this is Political Brew. Joining me this morning, Republican political strategist Garrett Mason and Democratic political strategist Betsy Sweet. Good morning to you both.
Good morning. Good morning.
First, we start with that debate.
He was the worst in all of American history. If he wins this election, our country doesn't have a chance.
President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump squared off in their first debate this week on the issues. They addressed the economy, immigration, abortion, and January 6th. But on performance, it was a bad night for President Biden and Democrats. Betsy, there's a lot of analysis here in all the major networks about the Democratic tailspin. What's your reaction?
Well, I think there's no winner to that debate. I think if you look at what was actually said, the substance of what was said, Biden wins hands down. I mean, Trump couldn't tell the truth for 1 second if it was required of him. Biden's performance was terrible. There's no doubt about that, But I think if we look at the issues that were actually spoken about, abortion, taxing the rich, and January 6th, just to name a few, I think we have to look at the policies and where it is, and that's what we have to focus on, and not the 90 minutes, which again, I don't think either side wins this debate.
Garrett.
Oh, I disagree. I think it was a great night for President Trump. I think it was a bad night for America.
I agree with that.
I think one of the things I'm very concerned about right now is it is very clear that President Biden is cognitively declining. I don't think anybody can hide that anymore. I think when our adversaries look at who is representing us on the world stage right now, I think that gives them a lot of encouragement for China to maybe make a move on Taiwan, or for Russia to do what President Biden was talking about and maybe move into another country. I think it's very dangerous for Joe Biden to be continuing to be in office. And I never thought I'd say this, but I actually think that I would prefer Kamala Harris to have the nuclear football. The second that debate ended, the 9 people that were on the panel for the CNN debate immediately started talking about replacing Joe Biden. Replacing him.
And the question is, why don't the 9 people on Fox talk about replacing Donald Trump, who has bullied people into supporting him and who lies and still will not say that he will accept the results of this election. He was asked that question 3 times directly, never said it. And when he was asked about January 6th, pivoted to say this is what the economy was, to say he had the best environmental record and we had clean water and air when I was president. Now, come on, that doesn't even pass the 5th grade straight face test. So I think you are right that democracy was the loser in this debate, and I think we should all be pretty concerned for our democracy in general. But I think if we look at the substantive policy and not the spin, and not what the media says, and not what the everything. I think if we look at the substantive policy, what was talked about, and what we see in the actual presidencies, there is no doubt about where we are.
I completely disagree. I mean, I think one of the biggest things, and I've said it on this show multiple times, is that one of the biggest issues, and it comes out after opinion poll after opinion poll, is illegal immigration. There is no question that last night Donald Trump laid it right on President Biden, and President Biden tried to honestly say that he needed Republicans in Congress to give him what he wanted. No, he didn't, because illegal immigration was far less happening under President Trump. That was another lie that the Biden campaign tried to spew last night. I just think that it was horrible. And to answer your question, Betsy, about why does Fox analysts get Donald Trump off the stage? Because Donald Trump is coherent and cognizant. Joe Biden is not. Joe Biden is not.
Leave that there. Meantime, some big Supreme Court rulings this week. First, justices ruling in favor of a January 6th Capitol rioter. In a 6-3 vote, the ruling was a win for Joseph Fisher, who is among hundreds of January 6 defendants, including former President Trump, charged with obstructing an official proceeding. The court ruled the law only applied to situations involving tampering with physical evidence. This is a win for Trump, though, Garrett.
I mean, it seems like it has. I mean, I'm not going to lie, I haven't had the chance to dive into an opinion or anything on this, but I mean, it does seem to be the case. From what I understand, they were tying it to an Enron case and some other things, but I mean, it does seem to be a win for President Trump. And I think, as the court finishes up their sessions, this kind of might give us a vision into where the court is going to head on some issues. Betsy.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's no surprise that the Supreme Court that Donald Trump appointed is actually ruling in his favor in something that's going to make it harder to convict him on what happened on January 6th. So, I mean, this is not a surprise. They are building their case so that when that case comes to them, which it will, because he will take it all the way to the Supreme Court, when that case comes to him, then what they're going to do is they're going to say, based on all these precedents, we can't actually convict the president.
Another case that was accidentally released early was on abortion, essentially allowing doctors in Idaho to perform them in emergency situations for now. Idaho law allows for abortions only when the life of a pregnant woman is in danger. The justice's decision does not address if that law conflicts with the federal law, which requires stabilizing care for emergency room patients. The 6-3 ruling from the court left in place a lower court's ruling. Of course, Garrett, this continues to be the fallout after Roe v. Wade was overturned. Where does this end?
One thing I want to address that's slightly off topic, but we'll get to that question in a minute. The leaks coming out of the Supreme Court are unbelievable. It's really unfortunate how many times that there's been a decision released inerrantly, a half-done report. From what I've read about the Idaho case is that the Idaho legislature seems to think that their law allows for emergency abortions, and that they're not disputing that there should be emergency abortions, like when in cases when a mother's life is at risk or there's some severe issues. So I mean, I think that this is somewhat of a semantics, because I think what the fix that the court is trying to do is what Idaho wants anyways. Now, I know we can have another debate, and I'm sure we will, about abortion rights in general, but I don't know that there's a there. I think that, in reference to that piece of the law, I think Idaho's okay with it and the Supreme Court is okay with it. There was a bit of a change of pace and a switch of opinion with the Supreme Court when they kind of flip-flopped on this issue, but I think everybody's driving to the same place.
And before we get to you, Betsy, I just want to talk about here in Maine, Democrats and abortion rights activists organized rallies on the anniversary of Dobbs this week in Portland, including Governor Janet Mills, who pointed directly at former President Trump.
This decision has wrought on millions of people across this country, falls at the feet of a single person, one man, Donald Trump.
Now, Betsy, it's not often you see the governor wading into national politics, but is she right here?
She's absolutely right. I mean, he said it during the debate. He said he is so proud of overturning Roe v. Wade. I mean, he said he's proud of it. He did it. He set up the court so that would happen, and it exactly happened. What happened in Idaho is doctors came forward and said, we don't feel safe treating a woman, and they used the example of a woman who was bleeding out in a midterm miscarriage, and she was going to have to fly her over state lines to get help, and she was going to die. And so I think that the veracity of which the anti-abortion people in state legislature after state legislature are going after these very fundamental rights is exactly what we can expect based on what happened in Dobbs and based on what former President Trump said he wants to do. We are seeing it in Texas. The infant mortality rate after their very restrictive abortion law has gone way up. And when we put this issue to the public, when it's out in a referendum, we have won every single case, because as I said many times on this program, this is visceral for women about our bodies, about our rights, and who controls them. And until we understand that this is this is about doctors and healthcare and families and women's rights over their own bodies, it doesn't belong in the courts, it doesn't belong on Donald Trump's lips, but he is the one who took responsibility and he's the one who changed it.
Garrett?
This is the issue for me, and I will agree with Betsy on this. I guess we're trying to agree with each other today, but I will agree on this. I think you're right when this is put to voters and when the spin is spun that the pro-life community, of which I am very much part of, has not done a good job of explaining things and being prepared for a post-Roe world. That's what we all said we wanted, and now it's here, and there was horrible messaging around it. But I am going to say this. I do not understand. I'm watching the governor and the speaker and everybody else at this Dobbs rally that they had in Portland. What more do you want? I mean, in this state, it is allowed to have up to a 9-month abortion. A 9-month abortion. I mean, that, in my opinion, and I think in a large opinion of the American public, we can have a discussion about first trimester, second trimester, third trimester. 9 months. And with,
Garrett, that is such a spin.
But it's true.
Yeah, but
is it true?
Only in severe cases. I can't decide when I'm about to give birth to a baby in a week and say, you know what? Change my mind. I'm going to go have an abortion. That's the way you make it sound. The only time there is a late-term abortion, no, it's not true.
It is true.
The only time there's a late-term abortion is when someone, either the fetus or the woman's health, is in serious danger. That is the only time that is allowed. It's not like you make it sound like Susie Q woke up and said,
but it was allowed
8 months.
before.
No, it was not.
It was. Yes, it was. It was allowed before.
All right,
Life
we don't
of
need
the
to
mother.
go back and forth on this, but yeah. So anyway,
Cool things down
I
here.
think the issue is, if people are against abortion, awesome, I respect that. Don't have one. What I don't respect is politicians, most of them men, telling women and families and doctors what they can do with their bodies. That's the thing that's wrong, and that's what's on the ballot this November.
All right, let's wrap things up with winners, losers. Garrett, we'll start with you.
Well, I think the winner is California Governor Gavin Newsom. I think he was very excited in the spin room to be chomping at the bit to possibly be nominated as the Democrats' candidate for president. So I would say he is probably the big winner. My loser for the week is Jill Biden. To allow her husband to go out on stage and face what he had to face, I think it's awful, and I think she should have known better. And so I'd name her my loser of the week.
Betsy.
So my winner of the week is actually Shelley Pingree for bringing attention to the slow clothing movement and its impact on climate change and really focusing on climate change. So she's my winner of the week, as well as the Jeremy Fry Indian Native American basket exhibit at the Portland Museum of Art, which if you have not gone to, you must go to. It's brilliant. And my loser of the week is American democracy. I think, how did we get here? How did we get to this place where both the substance of the debate and the spinning of the debate and our presidential election is where it is? I think our democracy is on the line, and I think we have to really pay attention to how the hell we are going to rein it in and bring back democracy to the people.
All right, Betsy, Garrett, thanks so much. That does it for this week's Political Brew. Remember, you can watch anytime online and on News Center Maine Plus. And a quick note, we will be taking a little summer break for the next month. We'll see you in August. The Morning Report is back right after this.
Listen,